Refuge Camp Part 5 First Outbreak in the Zombies Past Clocktime 2. Extended version. This story is a fiction. And their relationship to real events or people does not exist. If you find anyone like the crude reality, it's a fucking coincidence. Love, zombies, BCHTS, and science, fiction. Unconsciousness, voracity, and brutality, define predators, corrupt, and zombies. What are you trying to do? She said to me with a glance between thirsty and frightened. Rina could read my more subtle tone of voice with extreme ease, and I already had her in mind that I was planning something that was out of the instructions of the mission. Don't worry about me, I commented. I just intend to give a chance to survive to a few people who I think deserve it. I have already performed the analysis of the calculation of the future effects, and all the revisions are smaller than 1 and 10 to 0, which we will find interesting to check, and we will always be able to correct it. Rina assented between curious and dubious, but as we had to go somewhere without temporary natives in sight to try out the new toys, accompanied me most of the way along the edges of the route, until we found a little out and away, the remains of a stolen and burned vehicle. It looks perfect, said Rina, and in one move pulled out the laser projector and struck a discharge on the rubbish that with a few dry splashes, lost its softest parts. It touches you, he said to me in a dry, practical tone as he controlled the charge of his capacitors. Come out, I answered, and with a lesser degree of punctuation I hit a laser pulse on the heated rubbish that turned red and began to collapse on itself. I controlled the charge of energy that was getting in progress with a slight whistle that was sharpened to disappear. Perfect full charge, although it is always preferable that there is no opportunity to use them. But they make me feel very good. Rina said with a sketch of satisfaction, let's hope no one has seen us. Come with me to the refugee camp, just to see 2 people, then we will relocate to catch some of the first ghouls. Very close to dawn, and according to the historical record, there were 46 hours left. Rina and I walked with apparent normality on the edge of the road, where the lines were shattered. She looked at me with eyes that knew my intentions. What are you planning? He whispered. Don't worry, I said. I just want to give a chance to some people who are not involved with the forces of evil. I told you that the time drift calculations are smaller than 1 and 10 to 0, and that within the regional level. And if something bad comes out, we can always fix it. She assented. Curiously, skeptically, we went back into the past, looking for the causes of the zombie cataclysm, and we found that part of the beginning of the spread was linked to a blurred constellation of corruption, injustice, misery, and addictions, and as John By said, the zombie drug. According to the spectrographs, Rina began to say, we found random compounds of fentanyl, various addictive artificial chemicals and germs, bacteria and viruses, with traces of genetic editing. Addicts. I thought out loud, as if it was intentional, but it is early for hasty conclusions. I concluded, and we both remained silent, because we were already very close to the entrance of the refugee camp, and the noisy and bitter 1970s approached us coming from the village of El Peligro. John By, with his laughing characteristics, stopped the vehicle at the entrance of the refugee camp, was accompanied by the juicy young woman, looked with some impudence at the figure of Rina, then to me, and released another laugh. What made him so confident of himself? His lack of critical thinking was something for which there was no time at the time to analyze. I answered him with a gesture of hand, and Rina and I entered the refugee camp behind the vehicle. There was a slight relief of disappointment I perceived fugitively in Rina's beautiful eyes, and I said, of course, I don't like it either, and it's one of the places where no one should be. There are too many people in very little space. He said Rina with a tone of inconvenience, and continued, it's a crop hole for any infestation, it would be better if we retreated to a more favorable place. Yes, I also agree on that, and I'm thinking that we're very close to the outbreak dates of the first infections. Hello, we heard Lisa's voice coming out from behind a garbage container next to some dining table. And Tony, with a pair of black bags that he easily threw into the container, and in a look that crossed them, Lisa with expression of interest asked, what infection? The seasonal flu, said Rina, saving the situation, or that I wanted it to have passed. I'm Rina, he said, and the presentations were completed. I asked everyone to sit on the tables of one of the long tables in the outer dining room. Between affection and urgency, I extract from inside my backpack the travel tickets with the destination to Daisy Mount. I looked at Tony and Lisa and I explained to them very clearly, now I want you to listen to me carefully and not interrupt me. You two, go take these tickets, these money papers, get your clothes and the woman with their 3 girls and go from here directly to the transportation terminal, and you will not stop until you get to Daisy Mount. You two already have employment in the security of the hotel, and here on these sheets of paper are printed the accommodation details for you, the woman, and your 3 girls. Now look for them and go away without wasting time. Well, thank you, we will do it right away, said Tony with a deep expression of relief and some degree of dismay, instead Lisa, demonstrating her insight. And he said to me, what country did you come from? Because they speak the same. We worked a lot of time in the north and one acquires the mix of sounds, I replied to him with the greatest naturality I could simulate. Sure, said Tony, but his tone of voice had other clues, and he continued, like that Italian who was educated in Japan and studied English at a French school. And there were some nervous laughter. Seriously, you are not of my country's secret police, I don't think you are of the company, and you are clearly not of the Naked Sisters. We, in our country, have learned by force to identify the undercover agents. Your agents, right? Rina and I crossed a slight glance, and I calculated the rapid passage of time. Rina opened her mouth to say something, and I too, and we were silent, interrupting each other. There's a disease spreading. Rina cautiously said, our real job is to find the source. There's no way to stop it, I continued, and we can't change the events that are going to happen, we just have to record the data and over time and by completing studies, only so that it can be prevented from happening again. And how can you repeat something that hasn't happened yet? Asked Lisa, as suspicious of the answer. Rina looked at me like saying, you've got your leg. There's no more time, I interrupted firmly, here we say goodbye, now go, look for the woman and her girls, and don't stop until Daisy Mount, there's no other place to survive. And you? She started asking Lisa as we all stood up, and Rina interrupted her by saying, we will return to our world. They're aliens. Tony said between serious and funny, taking Lisa's hand. Will they be? Doubted Lisa. There are no aliens, I said as a farewell. And Rina added, we're others. In a joke tone. We're others.